First off, we
Public
need to
comment, right?
continue with consent agenda.
All right.
Secondly, we will reorder the agenda, and we will take agenda item 4C about the proposal to reorganize Granada Sanitary District's Community Service District is with the addition of Parks and Recreation powers. That will be next. But right now, we're going to do consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept
Public
the
comment?
consent agenda? We're through with the public comment.
We did it.
Public comment is over.
No. I asked.
He's still waiting for-
public comment. I was waiting for Supervisor's aide to return.
He's not coming back right
He's
now.
not coming back right now. We're moving on.
He let us go ahead with put his item last because he's doing things out there.
Okay, well then if he's not gonna be able to make it, can I just make my comment now?
I guess so.
I guess you may.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to report that some people may have seen the recent Department of Public Works adjustments to some of the sidewalks here in El Granada and also Moss Beach. They're now currently installing these yellow, some people call them yellow bumpy pads for the visually impaired.
Truncated cones.
Truncated
Cones.
cone detectable warning pads, yes. And so, I've seen them coming up in the region all over, and so I've oftentimes asked myself, what exactly are they for? So I did a little research in the matter, and I found out that most people don't really even know what they're for. A lot of people think that they're helping wheelchairs. They're specifically designed for the blind and visually impaired to note where the point of traffic is. Now, I wanted to say that I have also learned that it's a very we're talking about the truncated detectable warning pads that are installed.
Yes.
Okay, so I found out that a lot of people don't know what they're for, and they are for the blind and visually impaired. And I also learned that it's actually quite a controversial. There's other impaired people that are complaining about, for example, wheelchairs and walkers. They actually make it more difficult. And there's actually community leaders in the blind community that are also speaking out against it. But for any rate, right now there's a federal mandate to have them installed. I am still searching for the true reason as to what triggers them. If there's no work on the sidewalk, it's clear that if there's some new construction, they must be installed. But if we have existing sidewalks, why must they be converted? So I have some questions about that. I want everybody to know that my concern is the takeaway effect of the rural feeling that our community has, that I hear over and over again that people love. Nobody wants to make it more difficult for the visually impaired or blind to be able to cross the street. Not at all. But I did learn that there are other options to these bright yellow pads. They are made in other colors. In fact, on Stevens Creek Road east of 880 in San Jose, they are using black pads. The key important thing is there needs to be significant contrast to the area around it. So if someone that is slightly or seriously visually impaired, they can kind of see the imprint out there. So that is what I learned, and I really I heard it tonight how special how unique this community is, and my only thoughts are to just preserve it so we don't get that urbanized feeling overnight. So I will report back to the community as I learn more.
Dan, it might be an idea to make that an agenda item if you want to
We'll do
ask the
that.
council to take some action.
We'll do that.
Okay. All right, we're going to move ahead to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
I got a second, and everyone's in favor. The next item is, okay, so Chuck, you're going to go next? Okay.
You guys have made my job easy tonight. Don't
Certainly.
let what happened in Moss Beach happen here. Questions?
There you go. First off, Len, do you want to go ahead and address your agenda item 4A?
Just that, for the comment I made previously, I was removing it from tonight's agenda.
Okay. And 4C is Granada Sanitary District's proposal to reorganize as a community services district with the addition of Parks and Recreation powers. Chuck Duffy, the general manager of GSD, will present the proposal. A couple of things that I want to point out. First of all, the letter that the council is voting on to send, due to some comments that were received from the community, it has been revised and attached and now posted, so that's on the website. The following sentence has been deleted from the second paragraph. The reorganization can also serve as a possible stepping stone to future consolidations with other districts on the coast side. So the intent of the letter remains unchanged in support of the GSD application to LAFCO. Chuck, are you going to explain what LAFCO is?
I can if you'd like, sure.
Okay, then I'm going to move on to one more thought, and then it's your turn. Regarding this agenda item, I want to emphasize that we are not voting to approve or disapprove that GSD reorganizes as a community services district and acquires park powers. We're deciding if we are supporting GSD's application to LAFCO to acquire parks powers. The final decision is going to be made by the voters of the district. There will be an election, and the voters will get to decide the issue next year. So once again, we're deciding if we are supporting GSD's application to LAFCO to acquire parks powers. And take a look.
You've just given my report, I appreciate that. So this has been a long process, obviously, and there's been numerous task forces and studies and things that have shown there is a real need for parks and rec services along the coast side, and currently the only people who provide that right now is the city of Half Moon Bay. So the Granada Sanitary District started this process many, many years ago before even I came along. I've been involved in it for the past 10 years, so, you know, back then I didn't need these glasses. I weighed 10 less pounds, and probably better looking too, but it's been a long process, and we're finally hoping that we can get it in front of LAFCO now to get a vote. And what LAFCO is a local agency formation commission, and they kind of take a look at special districts and cities and counties within the state and see what's the most efficient means of delivering needed services to different areas. So that's one of their purviews in life. So our goal here is to get this in front of the LAFCO Commission at their November meeting. Hopefully the Commission will support it, and then we will go to possibly the June 2014 vote for the people to have their say whether they want us to reorganize into a community services district. The way we're looking at funding this is we currently receive about $470,000 a year in property tax, and we use that to offset our sewer service charge. So what we're looking at is taking some of that money, and it's a discretionary decision each year, and using that to fund parks and rec services. We've got some initial projects that we've talked about and whatnot, but part of the problem with us being a sanitary district right now is we can only go to some certain level of discussion on parks before we're a sanitary district. I can't decide to build a community center right now because I don't have parks and recreation powers. So that's one of the reasons the board wants to get these powers. We're also looking at a lot of partnering opportunities in the future with the city of Half Moon Bay, the school district, the county parks, you know, anyone we can help, you know, we'll get some kind of synergy going along the coast side and help bring parks and recs to the area. So that's our overall plan, and so we've been working with LAFCO. I've done a lot of outreach here. I just this afternoon was at the Half Moon Bay Parks Commission meeting. I'm going to meet with the school board September 12th. I'm going to try and meet with the Little League organizations, AYSO, everyone I can meet with, I'm going to meet with. We've also already been in front of County Parks Commission, and they gave us a letter of what I'll call support, saying there is a need for this and someone's got to deliver it. So that's our goal for this, and what we're looking for you tonight is basically a letter of support, like Laura said, saying we support this action. You know, the district understands this doesn't solve all the problems up the coast side, certainly not in Montara. But it's a good first step. It's one more piece of the puzzle to provide these services up and down the coast side. So with that, I will take any questions anyone's got.
Okay, at this point, council members will ask questions of presenter. What we didn't talk about is that we work with Rosenberg's Rules of Order. So once the council members ask questions of Chuck, then the public comment will be opened. Public comment closes, and the chair will be, motion will be put on the table to focus the discussion, and then the council will discuss and take a vote. So at this point in time, do any of the council members have questions for Chuck? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm Bill Keogh, I'm from Morse Beach. I looked into this a lot because this keeps coming up. It's supposed to be on our agenda for a few months now. And I went out to the website and I didn't see any kind of financials. And we just took out the comment about consolidation, but yet in all the talking points that I've seen floating around and what you just said now is, I don't understand how you can take property tax that's in the GSD district and then look to using that with the school district, or using that with the city, where it's outside the GSD district. And you also loosely spoke about in other areas out here. I was told, it gets very kind of cloudy and smoky when people are talking about this is why I don't like it, is that if it's within the GSD confines, then it's up to the GSD group. But when you start mentioning places outside of your own jurisdiction, then it becomes an issue. And the issue is that it could affect how the other communities would get services from the county, and possibly even in future development of you moving into maybe the Morse Beach area with the Morse Beach Park that came up, or something else like that. And I don't understand how that would work.
Well, before we go too far.
Okay, we'll answer those and then I'll get
So,
back to it.
yeah, so first, there is a budget, actually. There's a proposed or sample budget, if you will, at the end of our application to LAFCO. So there is money shown there, and I did that partly at the request of Martha Poyatos, who said she wants people to understand that if we take $200,000 a year from that 470 and put it over to Parks and Recs, that obviously has an impact on sewer rates.
And if that's the one online, those pages are blank.
Okay, well,
The ones I went to look at, the
alright.
pages were blank.
I'll have to look at
And there
it.
was nothing given to us for tonight's meeting, so again, I'm a little bit leery about, voting for a pig in the poke when I don't actually see the data.
Okay.
Wait, what didn't you get, Bill? I'm sorry.
I didn't see any kind of numbers of what was gonna be spent.
Oh, you mean budget-wise?
Yeah,
The application posted on our agenda item is the LAFCO application, and it has the financials here. I'm looking at it right now.
the one that was on the website, when was that one posted? Was that the one you sent out today? Because I saw you
No,
send
no,
something at 5
that's his
o'clock.
handout. No, it's the actual application to LAFCO, which was released last spring.
Right?
Yeah.
And we had it posted last spring, and it's also
Yeah,
posted
you
in
don't,
this
you didn't
agenda.
receive the application as part of, the application's a big package. I was trying to give you.
Where I was sent to on the website, which had all this, there was no data in that. And, after going through like 5 or 6 documents, I threw it away. But I can actually show you the documents online.
Okay, all right.
And
So,
so, it would be nice
This is-
when we get these kind of things that we would get the whole thing in a packet in one form. Okay, so.
So that's the first-
So that question then comes down, so that's money that's collected from the GSD ratepayers, the property within the GSD borders.
Right.
And so the real question is, because you kind of alluded to it too, that you would go to these other places, the city, the schools, the boys' clubs, whatever.
And when I talk about that, I'm talking about possible partnering opportunities. We are not providing park services outside our district boundary, so I want to make that clear. We're not.
So
When
I
I
guess
talk
we-
about partnering, I'm talking about if the school district's got land here and they want to build ball fields on it, then maybe we could go in a partnership with them where we could provide funding or maintenance or something like that. That's the kind of stuff we're looking to talk about. And, we're trying to work with everybody here because this is a benefit to the entire community. So we are not going outside the Granada Sanitary District boundaries to provide parks and rec services. We're also not providing them in Half Moon Bay, so,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Half Moon Bay, so that's why I was confused.
yeah, no, so,
So
yeah.
And the school district is a pet peeve of mine because we've already got 2 parcel tax from the school district, which go out and collect for all sorts of things which they keep promising and have been promising for 10 to 15 years that I paid attention to it and never seem to deliver on it. So I look at this as yet another set of funds that the school district will, tap into the taxpayers for something we've already paid 2 or 3 times over for. So I mean, if I was a ratepayer, I'd say I wouldn't give a dime to the school district. So,
Okay. I don't make that decision, right?
No,
So-
but it's just, again, it's this overlapping of jurisdictions and mixing and matching money that it gets very convoluted and difficult to follow. So again, it's not spelt out clearly. I know you can't do a lot now because you don't have the parks power, but, I think it's jumping the gun to start saying we're gonna support something when I don't have that level of detail.
Okay.
Those are my questions.
My question is, first of all, it's a little hard to hear you
Oh.
when you're facing, because your
Sorry.
voice is low. I don't know what you're not happy with. I heard you say a lot, but I didn't catch it.
I'm not happy with the amount of detail about what is gonna be spent, where it's gonna be spent, and how they decide on that. And I didn't like his comments about jumping around in the different areas. This is a GSD area function. They have no business going into school districts or the rest of it, as far as I'm concerned. That's a different district. As a taxpayer, if I was in this district, I would certainly think twice about that. I don't like the implications that there was stuff that was online where, people may, we might go over here in Morris Beach, we might do this. It's like, no, you can't do that. So even though the one little note about consolidation was pulled out, there's still enough wiggle room in some of the stuff that was sent out ahead of time that makes me feel very uneasy with not seeing any real details of what's gonna transact here.
Now, what's your rebuttal?
We've had this discussion, it's the chicken and the egg.
Oh, really?
I can't develop projects right now, defined projects that I put in front of a community hearing because we don't have Parks and Rec power. So I just can't do it, and it's been the back and forth with myself and Martha Payatos, that people want to see a project. I can't develop a project, I don't have community input. We've talked about it before, if we get Parks and Rec power, the board that's sitting there now may not be sitting there in 2 years or 4 years. So I understand the issue and I understand the concern, but, there's nothing we can do about that. I can't suggest we build a town center right now because it's meaningless, it's beyond our scope. So I understand, I've heard that same comment that people are looking at this going, well, you're gonna get the powers and we don't know what you're gonna do with them. Yeah, but, the city of Half Moon Bay has these powers too, and everybody up and down the coast side does, so, I guess our rebuttal is we need the powers and then it's open to community input. And the current boards at that time can decide what projects they want to do.
Questions from other council members? Go ahead, Bob.
You mentioned that you had an amount of money set aside for Parks and Recreation.
No, if we get Parks and Recreation powers, the district board each year will decide how much money to allocate out of that property tax revenue we get to Parks and Rec and to sewer.
Do water districts typically have Park and Recreation powers?
We're not a water district.
Okay. Or
No, sanitary districts cannot have Parks and Recreation power. That's why we're reorganizing into a community services district.
Because I think Catherine mentioned that she had funds and the ability to use them for Parks and Recreation. Didn't you mention that earlier tonight?
Under our water district.
Right.
But in your water district?
Yes.
We are a water and sanitary district.
Oh, okay.
So we can do sewer and garbage. If you become a community service district, there's 32 powers you can have activated, if you will, so, but it all has to go through LAFCO.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the spirit of the idea is long needed, so I'd like to move that we write a letter of support for GSD to become a community service district.
Okay, we'll put that on the table.
We've already written a letter. That's part of our packet to review tonight.
Okay, well, it's approved letter. I'd like to make a motion that we approve it.
I will leave that on the table because we need to hear from the public as well as council.
Well, we could still comment after.
Certainly can.
Just so to understand, I do have in front of me a pro forma budget that shows pulling money out and putting it to parks use, so I just want to clarify response to Bill's comment that there's not specifics there. The roadmap that you would follow, if I understand it, is We're giving this letter to LAFCO to support your application.
Correct.
LAFCO has the property to grant your request, and if they grant that request, then it goes to the public for a vote to approve it. So the public ultimately gets that final decision. And is that a 2/3 or a 50% vote?
50%.
50% vote. And then at that point, the board then assumes operation as a services district and a sanitary district and begins to make decisions. So what you've tried to show here, and if I read it right, is what it would look like if you took incremental $50,000 steps over 5 years. Not that you would do it that way, but
Right.
see what adjustments would have to happen. Okay?
And then, like I said, that's a sample budget, because I don't
Right.
have any project I can tie numbers to. And this, the legislative analyst's office, if, they passed something back, I think back in 1977, which encourages, and it goes even beyond that, the use of property tax for passive things like parks and recreation districts. That's basically something you can't charge a fee for. They want to take that property tax and use it for things like park and recreation districts, not to offset sewer rates, because if I need more money for my sewer system, I can raise rates and get a revenue that way, so.
So if this thing passes and you become this community services district, where does that extra money come from? Are you gonna raise the rates when that happens?
If they've put a substantial amount to the Parks and Rec side, and it turns out we have to raise sewer rates, then yes, we'll raise sewer rates. And again, that's something that Martha Poyato told us to make clear, which we've been doing in our public outreach, that this may have an effect on your sewer rates. This isn't free money. It's money that's gonna go to offset the sewer system side, so. And I think the key to our proposal here, to me anyway, is let the people of El Granada decide what they want to do. We're giving out all this information. I'm doing all this public outreach. We're trying to put more and more stuff on the website, and I'll take a look at it. Is let the people vote. If the people vote yes, it's their money, it's their right to self-governance, so that's the key to me.
Actually, that brings up the question I asked before that wasn't answered, and maybe I can toss it over to Nicholas. I'm fully in agreement that anybody who is within the GSD district can, if they want to vote for, painting the streets green, that's fine with me. I don't live here, I don't have to go along with it. What I'm worried about, though, the other issue I brought up, is if GSD becomes its own community service district with park powers, what effect does that have on the adjoining communities that currently depend on the county for any kind of park things? Does that, in effect, fractionalize the overall community and what little power we have with the county, and make us even weaker? I could see a whole bunch of little stovepipes out here. We had the Montero one, we had the GSD one, we had the Half Moon Bay one, and we're back to the balkanization of the coast side. It seems like a much more difficult way to be managing things. So, and then on top of that, we got the school district and all these other districts. It's like, your head's spinning by the time you figure out where you go and where you pay your bills.
And I've heard that point raised before. The county, and this is in our application also, the county is not in the business of providing local parks. They're not. And they've stated that before. They've shown it by their actions, because there are none on the coast side, and it's their stated mission. So they're not, so there is no, because we talked about also, are we having issues with Post or Mid-Penn or any of those? They do completely different things than what we're
Well,
looking to
they
do.
do regional parks,
Yeah,
like most counties do.
They do big stuff, but.
And that's understandable, but what I'm getting at, though, is that the whole idea of us ever getting any kind of community parks going is we're all gonna have to form our own little districts and do it in our own little communities. Or the only other alternative is consolidating it under one, which leads to the camel's nose under the tent for complete consolidation of the coastline, which is never gonna happen here. So, yes, you've heard them all before, and I've heard your arguments before, and what it comes down to is, I'm still getting the pig in the poke, and I don't know what I'm getting, so.
You're getting Parks and Recreation Services on
Well,
the
no, the
coast side.
GSD is,
Oh, you're right.
Montero Morse Beach
Okay,
isn't,
all right.
at least not from this thing.
Len,
But
did you have
what about what effect does that have on the county in doing anything out here?
You know, I wouldn't be able to answer that. I can go back and talk with Jim Nantel, who's the
Okay.
interim park director, and discuss with him, what he foresees as future services from county parks. I think until the county, I can't.
Okay.
I can't.
Well, and
But I'll
that-
talk with Jim
that-
Nantel and come
Yeah,
back.
could
and
you,
let you guys know.
let me know, because I mean, that to me is a major concern about this.
Can I jump in? Sam Hertzberg has told us, the MPRC, numerous times, that basically, the Midcoast, there is no taxation in place to tax for local parks. You don't, most cities and areas have that, we don't. And so we do these studies, and there's these needs established for parks, and yet there is no entity put in place that has the funding to accomplish it. And that is what is being proposed here. It may not be perfect, it's not Midcoast wide, but it's a start, and it's like, you hear the tales of woe, and, I mean, somebody has to step up. My community of Pillar Ridge, we tax ourselves, and we have a lovely playground and a swimming pool. That's what it takes, you know, if you know, it's like, I don't know, what else?
Well, you know, we obviously had the same thing in West Beach Park until somebody let it slip, but the issue still is that you end up with all these little special districts doing it. I mean, if you play this thing out, what's the end game going to be? And you're going down a slippery slope. And I can't believe you don't see this.
I'd like to hear some community members speak.
All right, I'm gonna open public comment. Catherine, I have a speaker slip for you.
Oh, yeah.
Why, thank you for the opening. What's wrong with balkanization? First, I support strongly letting the public vote on this. I support and recommend that the Midcoast Council support this so that it can come to a public vote. I'll go back. What's wrong with balkanization? What's wrong with having neighborhood decisions? If we're talking about economies of scale, let's look at the county. It just did a great economy of scale kind of move. I think neighborhoods have the right and the responsibility to speak, and I think it's only through local government. These parks and recreation and other kinds of public recreational uses and possibilities can be covered under a joint powers agreement. They can be covered under cooperative agreements, but it's up to the public to fund it. I will note that when Quarry Park was voted on, and I worked hard on that, it was the folks in Montero and Moss Beach who killed it. It was that vote. I think it lost by 1%. It was the voters in Montero and Moss Beach, and what they said was, oh, it's too far away. We'll never use that. Which I kept saying, no, it's not that far away to El Granada. But mentally speaking, I think they thought it was a long ways away to El Granada. Certainly, Half Moon Bay is now much further away than Lindemar. So, time it from Montero. So I strongly support this. I strongly support local special districts. We can always work together, but at least we reflect the voices and the visions of our communities, which is something that gets lost when you get into a larger and larger scale. Thank you.
Catherine, Dave Olson.
I definitely support the idea of the Community Services District and urge the council to approve the letter, send it off. I do think that the balkanization is confusing to people, but in talking to people lately on this issue, which I've done a lot of, I don't see any consensus one way or the other, so I'm not going to worry about fighting that issue very much. But I do think that parks are something we need. There's certainly no doubt that the residents of Moss Beach thought we needed a park and want to keep it. And I think the folks in El Granada probably should have the same opportunity. I did have a question for Chuck, which is one of the questions that comes up when you have a community services district, and obviously I already have this as a sanitary district, is the right to issue bonds. is there any thought of issuing bonds to fund parks sooner?
Yeah, and that's way off in the future. I mean, that'll become an issue if someone decides to build something big and wants to build it big now, quickly, yes.
Okay, so you've got that idea in your back pocket, but it's not in the immediate future.
Right, like every other idea.
Okay.
Waiting to.
All right, so yes, I certainly would foresee the sewer rates going up with this. And to me, that's a perfectly reasonable side effect. Of course, I don't live in El Granada, but should Montero Water and Sanitary District do the same thing, I would support that in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Jim Harvey?
Thank you. I also support the people being able to make that decision and have their own park district. But I'd like to ask Chuck,
Excuse me just a minute, you guys. Keep it, maybe go outside.
Bill Kehoe asked the question twice, and Chuck, you didn't answer the question. The question, Chuck, in your discussion, you talked about working in conjunction with Half Moon Bay and the school districts, and I think you mentioned Montero, but I'm not sure, but working in conjunction with Half Moon Bay and the school districts in building parks. And what do you mean by that? And Bill repeated that question, but you never did answer that, because you made that statement in the beginning of your discussion. Could you answer that question specifically?
Yeah, I think my words are being unintentionally misinterpreted. I'm just looking at partnership things. I'm not looking at possibly buying land together with them or things like that. It's just, for instance, Half Moon Bay right now, they let go of their parks department and now they outsource to the city of San Carlos. So it may be that we have the same kind of arrangement and outsource to the city of San Carlos. It may be that 5 years from now, the park stuff is going along so well that we decide to bring that stuff back in-house and have a collaboration between ourselves and Half Moon Bay. That's the kind of partnering I'm talking about, really. Is just looking at all that and trying to keep the coast side wide parks and rec situation going, so. Does that answer?
Answers the question.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Hi, Fran. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Fran Pollard, El Granada, and I am very much in favor of this. Been working, I am also on Midcoast Parklands and the subcommittee of the Burnham Strip Committee, subcommittee of Midcoast Parklands. So we've been, and I ran for the park district that we tried to form 20 years ago. I can't believe it's been 20 years now. And that, as Catherine just said, that was defeated. It passed in El Granada, but it was defeated in Moss Beach and Montero. So it's important to do this. I think if tonight, the previous session, the first item on the that wasn't even on the agenda, this room has never seen so many people before, that what the demand for parks is here. It's very much in demand, and the only way we're going to be able to keep it going is to have our own local control. And as Bill was saying, he doesn't want to see the proliferation of different districts. Well, it's the same district. That's the great part. We already have the district. All we're going to do is add a service. And if Montero wants to do the same thing, they can do the same thing, and it's the same district. And so there's nothing extra being added except the service. And I think there's been a show of support for that people want the park. So let's see, what else do I want to say? I don't know, I can't remember now, but definitely we have to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Do you have a speaker slip?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're back.
Good evening again. I'm back. My name's Ben Forkini from Moss Beach. And yeah, parks, we need it. I think it's fantastic. This has been a vision for 25 years more or less, and we're here today still stalling. So why don't we go forward and make things happen? We're having problems with these other parks along the coast. So to give an opportunity for the community, I may live in Moss Beach, I'll travel to El Granada, I'll travel to Montera. It's okay, it's only a few miles away. These coastal trails are connecting. I see recreation is the future and open space with the county, and the parks are open along Devil's Slide, so I think it's a win-win situation. Too bad our Parks and Rec is in San Carlos and, representing Half Moon Bay, so that may be an option. I think he's just looking for options for the community gets together and say, hey, let's make it happen. There's no strong entities out there with a lot of money along the coast to say, let's build something to make it happen. We have a lot of people who are passionate about it, but I do support that vision of the parks. I would like to see a more aquatic aspect of it, utilizing the harbor, surfing, kayaking. That's what the coast is about. The skateboard parks, I have some local friends who built the skateboard ramp right on your property, and that's a need of the community. Yeah, I guess it got pushed off a little bit, but that shows the need of the community fundraising $5,000 out of their own pocket of coastal kids that don't have anything to make something happen. So I support it. I'd like to see it happen before my hair turns more gray as I mature in life. So thank you. Thank you for all of the ideas and passion, and it could happen if we work together and make it go forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Carol May, do I see a speaker slip in your hand? Thank you.
I think we've already seen that we're more than balkanized. And those of us who had some association with the little 501c3 that dropped the ball in Moss Beach, who knows what happened to that? But there have been a lot of little efforts like this. I would say that in some of these, I wouldn't consider this consolidation so much as local districts acquiring more local influence. And it didn't take me 5 seconds to agree to, with a considerable cost associated with it, to agree to water powers for the Montero Water and Sanitary District. It was well worked out by those people. We knew what was coming. We knew we were going to have to pay for it. But we have done quite well, I think, in adding water powers and making a Montero Water and Sanitary District. There are all sorts of things involved with parks on the coast side. The county has repeatedly punted when it should have been doing all kinds of things. The county has never hesitated to increase the population, increase development and so forth on the coast side without concurrently increasing the services that they, as our city council in these unincorporated areas, are supposed to be providing. And the park in Moss Beach was at least once and probably several times offered to the county, and it's an easy pickup for the county by the group that was the little nonprofit group that was running the park. Was offered to the county. The county has refused to pick it up. It's an easy pickup to the county. I mean, they've already got maintenance people and everything else going to Fitzgerald a couple of blocks away. And the county has shown no hesitation to throw millions of dollars at paving coastal trails in the wrong places on the coast side, but they can't spend a few $1,000 to pick up the responsibility for the Moss Beach Park. Other parks in the county areas do not have special park districts. They're not taxed separately in special parks district, and there are parks in some of these county places. So this is the county dropping the ball on one of its responsibilities, and this has been going on for lots and lots of years. There are a couple of other things. One is it's sort of a foggy area, but I hope that Granada Sanitary District, in looking at funds for this, is looking at what are kind of elusive sphere of influence funds. There's a reason why Half Moon Bay sends its parks and recreation literature to every person on the coast side for their parks and recreation activities. And there's some there's some kind of either state funding or whatever going on there that puts us in their sphere of influence and is the reason for doing this. So that's one thing to think about. They're not doing that out of, generosity. They're getting some money to do that. So that would be something to look into as to whether or not, if there's a new Parks and Rec district in El Granada, that it can pick up whatever portion of those funds are going that way. There are a number of other ways of funding parks, and one way the county has been doing all kinds of things lately are grants from the state. There are several different state funds for funding parks and recreation activities, state bond funds and so forth. These would potentially be used by our local independent park districts and saving us taxes. Okay, so that concludes my comments. I don't know, I'm of two minds on this. If people are looking at this as consolidating some activities for the coast side and as a step towards further consolidation on the coast side, then I'm way against it. If this is looked at as a way of gaining local control of government activities on the coast side, then I'm for it. Thank you.
Do you have a recommendation to the MCC on the vote for us?
Haven't looked into it far enough. The only reason I'm standing up here right now is the line in the letter that was deleted. That's a huge red flag as far as I'm concerned. LAFCO has an agenda for consolidating us here. And I don't see this actually as a consolidation. I just see it as additional powers to a proscribed local district. I haven't read the whole proposal. What happens to the Half Moon Bay portion of GSD on this?
Yeah, we won't be providing parks and recs in the city of Half Moon Bay, so whatever portions of the city are within our district, our sewer district boundaries, we won't be providing parks and recs there. And maybe I'll speak a little bit because of the balkanization. I don't want to beat it to death, but too late. I mean, somewhere between the coast side and the federal government is someone's ideal of a perfectly sized government and whatnot. I don't think, you may have an opinion that the coast side is balkanized as it stands now, but this is not creating further balkanization. It's actually consolidating services in this area into one governmental entity, which is another one of the goals of LAFCO. Because balkanization would be forming another coastside district that solely had parks and recreation powers. That's balkanization. This is consolidation of various powers into one government entity. So.
I have a question on, how are you cutting out the Half Moon Bay portion of it? How does that work? I mean, you collect parcel taxes for all these, so you just, if you raise the survey and then you take money out of that, then how do you balance the books between who has a service and who doesn't?
And that's
have
one of the
service?
issues we're working through right now with them to figure out how we do that. So, there's a lot of work to be done on this proposal, and that's probably the main issue that I see, is working that out to make sure the people in Half Moon Bay and the people in El Granada are treated fairly with their property tax dollars. So we're in the midst of working that out.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? If not, I'm going to bring it back to the council. I believe we have a motion on the table. Do you want to repeat that, Dan?
I'd like to make some more comments before we.
Go right ahead.
So,
Before, I tell you what though, you know what, just to focus our discussion, I'm going to have Dan repeat his motion just so we have it on the table, and then you may comment.
I move that we approve the letter of support for GSD to become the community service district.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
okay. So, it wasn't until a little bit before I came to this meeting that I saw the change that was made today in taking that letter out. Up until today's meeting, the consolidation portion was in that, which was my red flag as well. Because having been looking at this for a while, we all know, as Carl said, that the county and LAFCO in particular, they all look at this as eventually not just consolidation, but eventually having this incorporated into the city of Half Moon Bay. And so, to me, it's a slippery slope. The fact that MWSD is in support of this is because they want to do it, and that's fine. I said it the first time, I said it a couple of times.
No. individuals.
Oh, excuse me, you're right. The individuals who spoke, sorry, for putting that idea in front of Montero and Morse Beach. And again, if they vote for it, I'm not against the people in the GSD territory voting for it. I just want to be perfectly clear that I don't want this to expand out into where we start having joint powers agreements, which are almost very close to the fact that, well, hey, you might as well be, you know, all consolidated to eventually, well, it'd just be easier if you're incorporated into Half Moon Bay. And so, you know, I have nothing against GSD having, the GSD territory having their own parks. Although I believe Quarry Park, isn't that actually managed by the county now?
Yes.
So they do community parks. I guess you just have to hold
No,
it.
it's considered a regional park.
Well, by name, but.
Because it's 40 acres.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have to visit the park. There's only
No, I've
one
had
small
visited the park.
area.
I have visited the park, and I realize there's a lot more land up there, but they spent quite a bit of summer money on the funny little swing set and the paving and on the playground part of it. And yeah, again, it's a semantic issue, where they like to play these games where they can do something in one area and not in another. Again, to Carl's point, is that those are services the county should be providing. Just like, you know, when you talk about mixing funds from GSD ratepayers along with the school funds that they're also collecting, again, I'm against all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, hold on, though.
So
Let's bring this back in to what
Okay,
we're doing.
I'm getting there, okay? Let me finish.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's a little bit rash without those details being spelled out for us to just give a carte blanche letter, say, oh yeah, we're in full agreement with this. Yeah, if it was spelled out in there that it should be put to a vote for GSD and as ratepayers, and they want it, we're not gonna object to it, but I don't know if I'm in full agreement with it. And I think that's where my issue is with this.
I just want to remind folks what we're voting on here, okay? We're voting to approve a letter to LAFCO in support of the GSD application, okay? To acquire park power through community service district. We're allowing the public to vote on this. We are not making a decision. Our vote tonight allows the public to take a vote. Go ahead then.
So, I just want to cite, because you've expressed concerns as to what it's doing, that on page 24 of the 25-page PDF available through our site, but it's also from GSD, they've enumerated a plan that makes it pretty clear on what some of these funds would be, you know, and I think they're all very reasonable and explicit. So I think they've done their due diligence to try to show what they would do. And Chuck has also been clear that that's a decision of a future board if this passes. So I'm quite in agreement that we should enthusiastically support it to bring it to LAFCO, for LAFCO to pass it and let the community decide. You know, we've certainly heard from other parks issues and seen their needs in the other part of the county. We've heard individuals speak about how that might be solved by other sanitary and water districts. And I also commented that there's a fund in excess of $500,000 that the county controls that supports Parks and Rec. And efforts have been made to divide it equitably between the two halves, the Moss Beach and Montera and El Granada. I think the execution problem is that none of those funds have really been spent in Moss Beach and Montera for reasons that is why it's a complex problem, but they don't relate to people at least making positive decisions to allocate the money. And I think when you look at the schools, the school owns two of the largest fields where recreation can occur in this area, so they have a major stake in the recreation picture here, and how to support it is an issue that has to be worked out between the districts. I think that the approach here, which lets Moss Beach and Montera, through their local sanitary and water district, take a similar action if they want to, is clearly open. If the district wants to take that approach and that part of the community wants to do it, it's open. So I think it's very equitable in that regard. So I don't see anything not to support for it.
Lisa?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor also. I think it's up to I don't think we can presuppose things, and it's up to the public to go ahead and have the election. So can I have a motion?
It's right there. Seconded?
You're seconding?
Second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain?
I abstain.
All those abstaining? Just yourself, okay. The motion passes. And now we're moving on to, Nicholas, this is your agenda item. This is Midcoast Highway 1 Safety Improvement Projects. Nicholas is going to discuss the public process timeline for evaluating design alternatives for the crossings, left turns, and medians. This is strictly informational. The council will not take any action on this.
Alrighty. Probably should've gone first, getting tired. Alright.
You're young and strong.
Yeah. Alright, so as many of you know, about a year ago, the county was successful in obtaining funds from the San Mateo County Transportation Authority to implement part of the Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Study. The elements out of the study that will be implemented are pedestrian crossings, raised medians, and left turn lanes. The breakdown is about 9 pedestrian crossings, 4 raised medians, and 2 left turn lanes. The locations, the conceptual locations, as of now, were identified through a public process developed study, phase 1 and phase 2 of the Highway 1 study, and so we took the projects right out of there. The first step of this project, or the next step of this project, is what's called a preliminary planning study, and through a partnership with the Transportation Authority and a consultant team, a study will be developed that looks at that looks at design variations. So each project element is going to have 4 variations of each project design. It's going to be 3 design variations and then what's called a no-build option. So don't do anything at this location, essentially. This document is expected to be completed in about 6 months, and then we do the first round of public engagement at that point. The public engagement will be done through a partnership between the county and the Midcoast Community Council, and the goal of this will be to reach as many people as possible, both people who regularly engage in county projects and people who traditionally have not. The projects are going to greatly impact the Midcoast in a positive way. The goal is that people will be able to safely cross the highway. The goal is that we'll be able to provide safe refuge through these raised medians. We'll be able to better manage congestion through the left turn lanes. Those are the goals, and when the consultants are done with this first draft of the study, the community will be able to look at that and say, we like option A for this crossing, and we like option B for this crossing. Or we don't like option A and B and C, but we would really like to see a hybrid between option A and B. That is what the community will be brought in to do. So the consultants will do the technical side of it, and the community will be able to do select which designs fit best for this community. Like I said, the document should take about 6 months to prepare, and then we'll do our first round of public engagement. That's where we are right now. The outreach will be done through a subcommittee of the Midcoast Community Council and the county. The subcommittee is Lisa, Laura, and Dan, and we will work hard to get that out. We're going to utilize technology. We're going to have not just social media, but the county has a website called Mind Mixer where we can put the designs up and people can log in and say, you're going to be looking at a computer screen and you're going to have 4 options in front of you and you're going to be able to rank them, and then you're going to be able to provide comments after. And we think that mixed with a face-to-face public process will be the best approach, and we're looking forward to this. We think it's going to be great for the community, and we want to get everyone there. We want to get parents. We want to get people who like to use this area for recreation. We want to get everyone. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Question? So, in light of recent actions, I just want to confirm that between Coronado and Capistrano, that the project, that this particular project will deal with the crossing in the vicinity of Surfers Beach, and that it will not deal with crossing issues in the vicinity of Sands.
Yeah, so this, this grant, we will look at what are the, Surfers Beach, because because of how technical it is, how complex it is, the consultants will look at what are viable options. Surfers Beach more than likely will be on a very different timeline than everything else because of the jurisdiction, because of the jurisdictional issues there, as well as there needs to be a conversation, frankly, around what is the future of Highway 1 there, and if you're leaving it there, how do you protect it? If not, what are the options? That is not a conversation that the county is responsible for having, although we will absolutely do everything we need to make sure that it's had. That's a Caltrans issue. Half Moon Bay needs to be involved with that. The Army Corps of Engineers is currently doing a study. So there's a lot more jurisdictions involved in that than just one. So that is a frank conversation that needs to be had, and so that will greatly impact what is done at Surfers Beach.
So, didn't understand your timing. So, in terms of the 6-month report back, the report back in 6 months will relate to Surfers Beach, or will not?
It will have essentially, it will have options for Surfers Beach, but they may not be in the same manner as the other ones are, simply because of how technical and complex it is.
And it will not deal with Sam's,
That's correct. Sam's Chowder House is being dealt through a separate process, driven by, through the county, but that is led by Sam's.
Do any other council members have questions for Nicholas? All right.
I do, yes.
Oh, go ahead.
So you said that the documents will take about 6 months to put together, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
So, any guess at the public meeting would be out 7 or 8 months?
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Okay.
Any other
Assuming all
council-
things
oh,
go, no, we're done.
All right, I'm going to open public comment. Leonard, I have a speaker slip for you.
Leonard Warren, El Granada. Two things. First, in some cases, picking between alternatives A, B, C, and none is the wrong question to ask. How do I know that without knowing what the alternatives are? Because the question that's missing is, should it go here versus somewhere else? And the community is going to know better than any consultant or anybody over in Redwood City where the right places are for the crossing. So the community has to determine the locations in addition to the design. And so your survey must include the capability for the citizens to provide input as to the specific locations. Now, as far as Surfers Beach goes, let's look at what the cause of the problem is there. And there are a bunch of causes. And by the way, as far as protecting a highway, all we have to do is get the Army Corps of Engineers to blow up the breakwater, and then the highway will be fine. It's actually simpler than it sounds. So the issue is parking. Surfers Beach is in the city of Half Moon Bay. City totally shirks their responsibility. They need to provide parking because it's a city-run beach. The county has Murata Surf West. County is shirking their responsibility. They're not providing parking. Lenny Schultz has made a proposal that she keeps pushing, but she can't make it to these meetings, so I'm gonna push it on her behalf, but I'd like to go over to the satellite photo there and point, if that's okay, and I'm assuming the camera can zoom in pretty well. Instead of people parking on the east side of the highway across from Surfers Beach, this, I gotta get oriented here. Here's El Dorado Elementary right here. This stretch is the Caltrans right away. You can't tell from this that the elevation is a problem here, but in front of Murata Surf, an exit lane off of the highway could be built so that people could park along that right of way, and there's space there for an awful lot of cars. And then there's the signal at Coronado, and people can just cross at the existing signal.
Leonard, that's not what this is about, okay?
Well, but that's my point, is that when you narrow the discussion to just safe crossings instead of looking at the bigger picture, you come up with the wrong answer. You have to step back and look at the bigger picture, which is why are people crossing in the middle of the block there? And it's because they're parking on the edge of the highway. So fix the parking so that they'll cross at the signal naturally.
Any other public comment? If not, we will move ahead to council activity. Good night. Does anybody have any council activity to report on?
Given the hour, nothing of.
Okay, we'll move right along.
I think, well, actually, should we report on the Caltrans meeting we had?
Nicholas did.
Nicholas did. Okay, committee reports?
There's other things there too.
None up here.
And we'll move on to future agendas. What I'm showing right now is September 11th. Len, we show you for California Coastal Trail for the Midcoast. We have the issue to be decided about the redistricting. Nicholas said he would send someone, but we discussed the dates and that wasn't feasible, is that correct?
He said he could have someone come and explain it to us, but it had to be on a night when they're not having their other meetings in other locations. In the week of our meeting on the 11th, the 12th won't work because that's planned Princeton, and on the 10th, that committee is meeting in another location, so it wouldn't do us any good to.
No, if we moved our meeting to the 10th, then
They
people
could
could go.
not come that night.
No, we move our meeting on the Coastal Trail to the 10th. And then on the Wednesday, the 11th, people could go to the district lines meeting in Half Moon Bay.
So how do we go about deciding if we want to do that?
Well, first of all, as regards to the coastal trail, besides my overall desire to finish it, there was an issue that Nicholas was pursuing that was creating some urgency for it, but that opportunity went away. I still wanted to work on closure there, but given the new committee assignment I got today as far as Moss Beach Park, my guess is that 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about Moss Beach Park, and that issue or the one that I dropped as regards the playfields would take priority over the California Coastal Trail. So I think some combination of those should come forward on the 11th, and they would take precedence over the Coastal Trail.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we get a show of hands on which council members have their heart set on going to the redistricting meeting on the 11th?
Oh, okay. Did you all hear that?
But I was planning on going unless there's something major.
Who has the conflict?
I was
I
going
would-
to do it
I
online.
would like to go.
Okay, so
So how many?
just
is that?
taking numbers.
How
Bill,
many wanna
Dan,
go?
Bill, Dan,
Just two.
2.
All right, do you both, would you two like us to reschedule our meeting? Or would you just assume not,
Well, if the Moss Beach Park is on for that, obviously, and I would take that precedent over, since I have a stake in that game.
well, if we're not trying to schedule a special presentation by the
I'm-
district people,
I'm not
then we
asking for
could
that.
schedule it to the 10th, if that's all right with you, and if the room is available. On the other hand, if it's Moss Beach Park, maybe we need a special venue, but we can work all that out later.
Wait, I lost you. What are you proposing? I didn't catch it.
If we're not proposing the advisory people come and talk to us here, that's
Okay.
not what we're proposing.
No.
We just want to avoid the conflict with the Wednesday meeting in Half Moon Bay. Then we could decide, do we want to reschedule the meeting from the 11th to the 10th? Does that work for Len? Because it's very, and.
It works for
and
me.
If so, we might look for a special venue. If it looks like it's a Moss Beach Park thing or whatever, we can decide that later.
I feel good about that only because this is also back to school night, which
Oh, there's
is
that.
the only time you have to meet your child's teachers, so,
The 11th is,
yes.
it's another good reason.
So does
So-
everybody like the 10th?
Shall we
Like the 10th?
reschedule our meeting for the 11th to the 10th? This way also, then if we find out more details about Moss Beach, like you mentioned, if we needed another place to meet.
10th is the second Tuesday. I'm just trying to look back at that letter. I remember which,
Which letter?
the one on the consent agenda. No, it's fourth Tuesdays, okay. That,
Fire
meeting,
board?
Meeting conflicts, yeah.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh. And that's the fourth Tuesday, is that what you just said?
The fourth Tuesday is available. Where's Leonard? I'm trying to think if the second Tuesday has something.
Look at the calendar on the website. The meetings
It's
are
all
there.
on there.
Yeah, I'm
Although
not-
you do have to look up, Half Moon Bay separate.
So we're,
So,
Okay,
I'm
with
waiting
the-
to see, I don't have a computer, so I'm waiting to see what
Yeah,
someone has to
okay.
say.
The only thing on this next month. Just looking at the wrong month.
CCWD meets that night.
Okay,
I don't see that as an issue.
so that
I
doesn't
don't go to
affect
those
us.
meetings, okay. But some people might.
don't think I'm gonna worry about it.
We aren't. So we're going to take the meeting of the 11th, and we're going to reschedule that for September 10th.
At a location to be named later depending on,
Crowd,
What
yes.
we're talking about.
depending on topics at hand.
Okay, and now I'm going to move on with the rest of the up-and-coming agenda. So September 25th is going to be the candidate forum for Montero Water and Sanitary District, and that's going to be held at Seton. October 1st,
Seating at 7, right?
Seton at 7. Alliteration.
And Jackie confirmed?
Jackie confirmed. All of these are confirmed. I sent you a list of them, and
Yeah.
those are all confirmed.
I'm just trying to remember.
October 1st will be the candidate forum for the MCC, and that's going to be here in this room. That's a special meeting on a Tuesday for 7 PM. And
That was
then-
October,
Pardon me?
First.
That's October 1st, right. And October 9th is a candidate forum for Granada Sanitary District, and that will also take place here at 7 o'clock. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Right.
Thank you, Steve. He's not even looking.
You didn't have to stop the camera tonight.